So good afternoon and good evening, even good morning to all of you around the globe who are chiming into this another intimate conversation series with guests today from Which Bitch, which I love, is Claudia and Juliette. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So welcome. And this is a mother and daughter team. And we're going to have a bit of a fun here today. I can feel that. So I'll just read their blurb here, their bio, which is goes like this. So welcome to Which Bitch. My daughter Juliette and I created this group as a safe place to discuss everything energy. After all, we live in an energetic universe. This is a place for connection of the highest order. We bring our unique mother-daughter flavour to this group with our arms and hearts open to you all. All we ask in return is mutual respect for yourselves, each other and us, and that you bring your curiosity with you also. You can expect honest interviews, lives, shared knowledge, fun posts, memes, spotlights on our members, and personal truths shared through story, experiences, and the endeavour to expand and raise ourselves and others to new levels. So please invite your people. We wish to grow this community with love and intention to connect through respect, honesty, and a few laughs along the way.
Yeah.
I have had the pleasure of being invited on as a guest on their show on the Which Bitch site, and had a lovely time with you both. So tell me why the name Which Bitch? I mean, it socks you, you know, when you when you read it, it's like, oh, there we go. Tell me what happened there and how did that come about?
Do you want to answer this one, Juliette?
Yeah, so we were kind of going through many ideas for what to call our podcast Facebook community. It's really what to call our community. And our intention was to bring something magical to the world, and also to bring other people's magics, like their personal magic, to the world as well, and share that. And so of course the word witch came about. I mean, both Mum and I are quite witchy women, and especially me, like I'm into the rituals, I'm into the crystals and stuff. Mum is too, but I am a little bit more. So yeah, we're automatically witches. And then we were like, okay, well, let's play with this. And another word that we could feel wasn't really owned very much by the world was bitch, because witch was one word that was used to basically as an insult and to push women down, to like label women, to kill women. It's a word that has been, oh my God, used for such harm. And I think in today's world, the word bitch can be used like that too, maybe at a less extreme level, but still there is real stigma, and that word is used to degrade women. And so we're like, wanted to bring these two words together and put a new meaning, a new spin, and reprogram them to be proud of them and to own them, and to have fun with them as well. Yeah, so, and they rhyme. So
I do.
Yeah, so that was kind of where we were at. And when we said it, I personally, I'm not sure, I would be interested in hearing how Mum felt about it, but when I first heard it, I was thinking, God, this is a bit intense. Like, what will people think? And it wasn't a straight up yes for me right away. I had to think about it for a minute. But the more that I was pondering on it, the more that I was sitting with this name, it was like, yes, this is so what the world needs, and such a strong message that I know I want to embody and bring out to the world as well.
Beautiful, Juliette. I totally get that. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so cool. So, Claudia, how did you feel about it when you first took it on?
Juliette suggested it. Well, she came to me and suggested the whole idea of the podcast and interviewing people and all of that. And I was taken aback a little bit, but because it was with my daughter, I was like, I'll rise to the challenge, just because I have, I have, I've in the past, I've had a fear of public speaking. So, so anything to do with putting myself out there is going to be confronting to me. I mean, I think it is for most people, but it was really for me. So it was like this challenge, step up or go home kind of thing. So when she came to me with the idea, I was like, okay, yes, I'm going to do this with her. And then she suggested the name. And it is a socket to your name, and that was the thing, that was the part of it that I found fun. Like, Juliette's right, yes, it's a very confronting word, well, both of them are, but I saw the fun in it. I saw the ownership of, let's take this back and make it our own and make it into something positive, rather than, you know, continually carrying on activity in it. And so and it's punchy and it's in your face, like it's really, it's, you know, and when people hear it, they laugh, they go, oh. So it kind of works. I think it works, and I think it I think for my personality, because I can be a polarizing person, like people either love me or hate me, so it for me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that's awesome, because definitely both words, you know, they have, and it has got a punch for sure. And when I first heard it, I thought, whoa, you know, wow, that's out there. But it was, you know, when I felt into it, I could feel the energy of both of you coming from heart. It wasn't about, you know, look at me, look at me. It was about, for me, this, you know, energy of community and reclaiming, because that's what it felt like for me, was, yes, let's reclaim that witch and let's reclaim the bitch. You know, we get called bitch because we're leaders usually and strong-minded and won't take any shit.
That's exactly it.
And that's, you know, that to me isn't a bitch. That's a strong woman that knows her mind and her heart and is stepping into that, you know. So I was like, yeah, you go, girls. It was great, really great.
Yeah, and I think the Juliette's generation and maybe a little bit older than her, that I've heard women in the younger generations, to me, really claiming that word bitch for themselves and really turning it around, because as you say, a lot of women who are strong and who know their own minds and who go for what they want and have that quality about them, they do get called bitches quite a lot. And so that I think that it's apt, and I think witch and the bitch together is like it balances itself out, you know. It kind of goes. So it
really does.
Until the day comes that we've morphed into something else, it's going to stick.
Gorgeous. No, that's really cool and courageous too, because, you know, that could have, and maybe it does even turn some people away who don't understand what it's about and how they may even be, you know, a little bit of both and denying even, but, you know, it's a great thing. It's definitely, made me look into it more too as well. It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have had people like come to us and actually say no of coming on the show because of our name. So like there's definitely resistance about these two words put together.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see, because even though it was very much in your face when I first thought of it, it was like, no, actually this is really fun, like Mum said, like it's really fun, we can own this, we are owning this. And I think as we grow Witch Bitch, you can also see my mum and I, as well as the whole community, owning those parts of ourselves more and more as we grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's a wonderful space. Wonderful. And good on you with your courage, you know, to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me, Claudia, you've been saying to me that you've recently sort of woke.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us about the moment maybe where the blindfold was taken off and you saw the world the way you see it now.
Yep, it was a definite moment that it happened. There were a few events happening to me up until that point.
Yeah.
And when I look back now, I see my whole life differently because of the scales have been taken off my eyes. So I can look back and I see the universe giving me synchronicities and things to lead me to that point.
Yeah.
But I was either blocking them subconsciously, or I wasn't ready to see, or, you know, there were reasons why it took so long for me to get there.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that kind of like snapped me around was my dad got sick with motor neurone disease in 2012, and that changed the trajectory of my life. And I see, when I look back, I do see it as a bit of a timeline shift in my life. Like it really threw me for a six, because my dad and I were very, very close, and it changed the dynamics in our family. He was sick for 2 years and he declined quite quickly in that 2-year period, and things happened, and changes happened in our family, and big things were shifting, and I was seeing things come out in my family's personalities and things like that. So and in my own, like for myself as well. And then so that all happened, and then I went on to this path of entrepreneurship, because Juliette started selling lemonade to raise funds for a cure for motor neurone disease. And so for that, we joined an entrepreneur school.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot through that and through the experience of the fundraising. And then also a spiritual path emerged out of that as well. So it was this kind of like parallel opposite thing, like the business and the spiritual was going on. And then that kind of led us to another point in our lives where I was starting to feel things, huge things in my body that I couldn't control, that I couldn't reconcile within myself. And so I learned a technique of how to get these big feelings out. It's called anger release. And so I went to the ocean one day and I stood on a cliff and I screamed at the ocean to get all of these big, big, big emotions out of me, all of this stuff that had built up over time, all the grief that I had over my dad. It was like a whole heap of stuff, layers and layers and layers of stuff. And I just stood at the ocean and I screamed out at the ocean, and then all this stuff, once it cleared out, all this stuff downloaded into me. And I was like, what is this? Nothing like that had ever happened to me before, but I knew inside my soul, like on this level, this knowing inside me that everything that I was receiving through the ocean into me was true, was truth. And it was all about polarity. It was about how two opposite things can exist at the same time.
Yes.
There was a myriad of things. There was loads of stuff about veganism, about animals, about spirit. Like it was just all this knowing that came into me.
Wow. And
then from there, each day, a new realization came from that. Things about good and evil, things about what I was seeing happening in the world. Because for years I was saying to my husband, the world feels upside down to me. You know, things feel upside down. The things that are supposed to be good, no, like they're not happening. The things that we're being told we're working towards, you know, it doesn't look like that to me. Like life is supposed to be getting, we're supposed to be getting more intelligent. Life is supposed to be getting easier. We're supposed to be looking after the elderly. Like our society is so intelligent. We know what's going on, yet people are still in poverty. People are still dying of diseases. Like, and it was feeling to me like I was being told one thing and then another thing was reality.
Yeah.
It was completely two different things. So for years I was feeling that. And then when this knowing happened at the ocean, all these answers started coming to me about why I was feeling those things and what was going on. Then I started, once that happened, I started to kind of seek it out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I started to ask more questions and then more answers would come. And things started to flow a little bit easier in my life. And then, bang, COVID happened.
Right.
And a mass of information started coming out on the internet about things. And then from that, a friend of mine, we were talking like little bits and pieces, and she sent me a video done by London Real interviewing David Icke.
Right.
She sent me the interview and I watched it and I just went, psh, my brain just cracked open.
Yeah.
And I just went, oh my goodness me. I called my husband in. We watched it together. His mind was blown. We started talking about it. And then Juliette came in and went, what are you guys talking about? She heard us talking and she was like, this sounds interesting. I want to know more. She watched it. And then our journey together from there began. All three of us together. It was kind of like boom, boom, boom. It happened to me, but because we all live together, little bits of it were breaking off into their consciousnesses as well.
Yeah.
And then when my brain blew open, they noticed, and then their brains blew open, and then it all happened together.
All right.
At the same time. And that was at the beginning of COVID in 2020.
Wow.
I must admit, coming into the room and seeing my parents watching the famous crazy believer in lizard people,
Yes.
it was so surreal because when I was growing up, I was watching those YouTube videos, not of David Icke, but people talking about him because I was really into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And I didn't go far down that rabbit hole because, you know, the videos that are out there when you're first dabbling into it and you're looking into it, they don't actually explain the real things. Like they just say, oh, lizard people, or, you know, this, and they make up the front story. And so of course I didn't really believe it, but there was other things that I did believe, conspiracy wise, and I always questioned. And my mom, at times, I remember my mom telling me, like, I would come in and talk about like how the moon landing was fake and things like that, and she would be like, what is going on? I'm like, okay, you believe that? And so me walking into mum's room with dad watching like both of them watching this guy, I'm like, what is going on? This is so weird. I'm usually the one like watching crazy stuff.
Yes.
So it was really interesting.
That's so
cool. I needed to have that experience. All of those things happen before I got to that video.
Yeah.
That was really the video that kind of like
clinched it all together.
Yeah, it was, well, they call him the dot connector. That's his nickname. And that video was what connected all the dots for me. And I had to get to a point in my life where I was actually noticing the dots, because I wasn't even noticing them up until that point.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is about all of this is that my husband grew up in the UK, and he was watching David Icke on television all those years ago when they were laughing at him.
Oh, wow.
And so when he saw me watching the David Icke video and I said to him, you got to watch this, he had that skepticism.
Yes, he would have.
In the background.
Yeah.
And all of that went away when he watched the video. He realized then, listening to everything that David Icke was saying, that there was truth to what he was saying, because I think to that point too, he started to realize the manipulations of the media and, throughout history of television.
Yeah.
And so those scales had been removed from his eyes. And so when he watched it, he was like, oh, right. So the penny dropped for him too. So it was like all three of us came together at the same time.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It's so good. And David Icke's great. I mean, he has had so much, rubbish thrown at him really over his life. But, yeah, gosh, I just love him. And I think he's been so courageous to be able to stand as he has, because he's never folded. Yeah. He's always stood the ground, in the line. But yeah, great stuff. And I think more and more people today definitely see that his word is truth, really, or can feel it now. They've got an idea.
That's the difference. That's the difference. That's feeling it within yourself and in your own body. Like our bodies are antennas, like our intuition, where we feel it in our body, that's communication. And that's something that I didn't know previously. I didn't understand. I really didn't understand why my body was doing the things that it was doing and telling me the things that it was telling me. It was like it was a language that I didn't understand. And it wasn't until I got all of that anger out of me, all of that stuff that was inside me from all the years before. Yeah. I could hear it, that I could listen to it. It was all clogged up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is. And then clarity, and I remember the time when I, had been up until this point, which was in my early 20s. Like I say, I'd been awake, and I'd been born in awake, really. And I was trying to fit things, I was sort of like observing as I was playing it out as a kid, and trying to fit it, and something just didn't fit. It couldn't really quite fit. And then I was taught numerology, and it was in that moment, there was just this huge aha, and the blindfold was definitely taken off, where I saw how, our everything vibrationally and energetically, really, how the numbers all had a vibration, and alphabet had a vibration, and words, and everything was connected to sound and vibration and color, and it was just the whole thing just came together. And I could not see the world the same again. There were moments I wished I could, because then it was like this, how things get put in front and you start peeling back layers, because it opens you to you, and who are you in that now? Who am I in this now? Yeah. And you start peeling back, and there were times in there with the peeling back that I wished I wasn't, in that space. Yeah. But it was always beautiful in the end, when you come through those times. But it's amazing when that happens. You cannot go back to seeing it the same way you did before. There's no way.
Yeah, I relate to that so deeply. And I often think of the scene in The Matrix when Neo wakes up in Zion, or on the ship.
And
when he first realizes that this is reality, not the illusion.
Yes.
And he falls on the floor, and he vomits, like he can't handle it, like it's just, and he passes out. Yeah. And that's how I feel sometimes. It's like when you see what really the, you know, the illusion parts, and you see, you know, behind the curtain.
Yes, yeah.
And it's so shocking and it's so emotional that sometimes I'm like, oh, can I take it? Can my body take it? Can I take any more of this reality in my face? That's how it feels sometimes.
Yes, it does. And Juliette, what about you? When did your sort of awakening happen, or did you come in awake and aware?
I think I definitely came in awake, but over time it was like, oh, I'm up here, and then I went back down, and while I was down in I wouldn't say a sleepiness, but just kind of in teenage life.
Yes.
When I was down there, I was always interested in conspiracies. Like, it was when I was in the deep places where I felt asleep at some level, where I would go out and I would find conspiracy theories to look into. I was just so into conspiracies. And like probably all of my YouTube videos that I was watching was about some sort of conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, it was something like, you know, just kind of random. But I don't know, I was just so interested in life being more interesting and life being kind of like that movie that we watch, like, yeah, what, like movies in Hollywood. I thought that life could be like that, and that this narrative that life's boring and we all die and nothing happens, I was like, I don't think that's true. And I think that life can be like a movie. And it wasn't so much of a, because not all movies are great, but it was just more like life can be interesting, life can be cinematic, life can be romanticized. And yeah, so I always had some sort of awakeness going on. Like, when I was a kid, I really knew myself, and I did not have one level of fear about what others thought of me ever. And that was up until I was about 11. And then when I turned 11, things kind of shifted. But my whole life up until I was 11, I did not give a crap. Like, I would go out wearing the craziest outfits just because I wanted to wear it and I really loved it. And it was like me in clothes. That's how I wanted to show up. And like, I'm talking fluoro everything. Like, I looked like an 11-year-old just going to a rave. Like, it was just
I love it.
and I would have the weirdest looks from people. Like, I remember there was this one time I was going up the escalator and I was with my mum at the shops, and there was a guy or a woman going down, and she gave me a funny look, but I didn't notice it until mum said, oh, you know, everyone's kind of looking at you crazy. And I'm like, I turned to her and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. And I just looked away and I just kept going. It was like I did not give two craps about it. So I definitely always knew myself, and I came in here quite strong.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever too spiritual in terms of like awakeness. It was just more me being me. Like, I remember I was drawn to crystals, and I really loved the vibration of crystals, the feeling of crystals. And there was this one time that I got this really big rose quartz crystal from this crystal shop when I was little, and I still have it today. It's the first crystal I ever got. So yeah, there was things that I was drawn to, but it was only until that David Icke video, and for me, mum kind of had a gradual like synchronicity after synchronicity leading her to become awakened, where it was me, I was just kind of like, some part of me already knew this, and it wasn't a huge shock when I watched the David Icke video. Like, yeah, it was very much enlightening and I received so much, but my awakening wasn't so strong compared to other people. You know, like, people have stories of going through hell and back and like seeing shadow people, and like, oh, we were talking to Todd Medina and he saw Jesus in a tree. It's like, I didn't have any of that. It was just like, oh yeah, okay. So basically what I thought this whole time was kind of real. That was what it was like. It was like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, so I was right. And now I have permission to really allow those feelings to flow, and I don't have to kind of convince myself that they're not real, because that's what I was doing. I would hear about all these crazy things, and it was like, okay, that's intriguing, but I'm not going to step into that because I don't want to be seen as that crazy person. But now it was like, oh no, I can step into that. I'm ready to step into being crazy, and I now have permission to feel and like accept these beliefs. So that was more my awakening story. And I'm like, the more that I'm going down this road, that's when the crazier things are happening. Like, I think at some stage in the next few years I might see Jesus in a tree. I'm not sure, but a lot of people start off with a big bang and then they kind of like go into it. But me, it was like, it's kind of happening the other way. Yeah, so that's interesting. And that's kind of my story so far.
Yeah, beautiful. I can relate to that though. I didn't have a lot of big ahas, only the scary stuff. I think I talked about that on our interview with in Witch Bitch, about the stuff happening when I was a kid and scary stuff. But mine worked like that too, where once I opened up and really accepted it and really was like addicted to getting right into it, then this crazy stuff started happening, the big crazy things, but they were amazing. And sometimes, you know, it breaks us out of that. We've got to see it to believe it. You know, we've had that sort of conditioning, we don't believe anything until we see it, actually. But this is the other way around. We sort of start feeling it more and knowing it in the feeling state, and then we start seeing things. It sort of opens us up to that. And the proof starts happening. I suppose it's proof really for us.
Yeah.
Wow. It's sorry, go.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you go.
I was saying, like, I think that's really important to mention about feeling, because that was really hard for me. I was more in that side of seeing is believing. And then when I was accepting these beliefs, I had to feel them and trust that I was right.
Yes.
And trust that my intuition was right. And then once I did that, then I would see it.
Yes.
And it took almost 2 years for me to start seeing changes happening, because I had to believe in my feeling, not believe in the external from me.
Yes, that's exactly it. And it's difficult because a lot of people, like I say, we're taught to only believe it until you see it, you know, when you see it. But it was interesting you saying about all your fluoro, because my youngest daughter, she's showing me that realm of those younger kids, like your age probably. She's 25 now, but probably in around your age. But they had their thing was the scenes. So there were the goths who were really dark, you know, hair over their faces, dark black hair usually, and dark clothes, and didn't want to be seen. It was like they were closing down and shutting off. Then there were the scenes there, and I said, because Bobby started talking about these different groups of people, kids, you know, young ones at college and high school, and these scenes had to colour hair all the time. Like, she has had every colour you could see in the hair range. She's had it. And at high school, which was not allowed, but they were doing it, you know. And I said to her, what's all that about? And she said, oh, we're scenes. We call ourselves scenes. And that was them wanting to be seen, you know. And I think this generation, like your generation, Juliette, is really about that. I think you came in, we sort of stood back a bit in our generation. We were conditioned so much that we took that on, even though we were breaking out through that and brought our children through that breakout. But you came in, and I feel for her as well, in that place of, we come in here to be seen. We're going to be seen and heard this time, and you might not hear us, but you're definitely going to see us. And yeah, I loved it. And very open, loving, you know, like hugging each other at school and telling each other how they love each other, you know, finishing the day with a hug and I love you, see you tomorrow. You know, I mean, that wasn't us at school, God. There's no way. So, you know, it was a beautiful thing to watch. I loved it. And I thought, holy moly, these kids are bringing in this love wave, like actual, that's, you know, they were opening it up and it was great. Don't know how everyone else coped though, but I loved it.
Yeah, we do definitely do that. Like I definitely recognize that now. Like there's a lot of love and it's really easy for us to say I love you in the in the context of friendship.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time to my friends, like maybe just after like a few weeks of knowing them, it's like, oh, I love you, bye. And then there's a lot of love there. I definitely agree with that. And I think also being seen is very strong in my generation because, and that can be taken, I think it's good all across the board because there's no hiding really in my generation. Like if you're feeling some way, it's going to be seen whether like we wear that through, you know, a certain style or we express or we show lack of expression. Like we're very much visual people and as a whole we definitely aren't afraid to show the world like where we're at mentally and you can very clearly see where someone is at mentally by how we're showing up.
Yeah. Juliette, what do you, and even you, Claudia, what do you feel around all the anxiety that all these, you know, particularly your wave group, although, you know, when I now with my two daughters who have social anxieties, didn't know that so much with my oldest, but she's come out now telling us how she is and how it's affected her. And my second daughter, Bobby, definitely had a lot of anxiety, and my grandson has. And I'm seeing it now in my little 2-year-old granddaughter. There's times where you can see that she's anxious and this is a performance is because she's anxious and scared. And when I look back, I can see my mother was definitely an anxious person, whereas I wouldn't have put that label on her at that point in time. I didn't, and I didn't look at her, I just saw that she was a very insular type of lady. But this anxiety is rife throughout the young community. What do you feel that's about?
I think this is a very interesting one because I also would say that I do experience anxiety. I don't identify with the label of having anxiety disorder or something, but it's very strong in our generation. I think part of it also, don't get me wrong, I think part of it is seeing it in other people and wanting to relate because we're all so different in this generation. I'm not saying this is every single person, but no. I do wonder like why so many of us have it. And what I've been thinking is like we are literally from across galaxies. Like it's so hard for us to find ways to relate to each other, especially when it's like a starseed from like who knows what planet. Like, and now in the higher vibrations, like you can easily I'm sure you can easily communicate and find resonance. But down here, that's not quite as easy when we're in a human body and you know, we're experiencing Earth with all these like crazy programs and really dense energies being thrown at us all the time. So I think part of it is finding relation with someone else, finding resonance, and it is seen as something to be relatable. Having anxiety, having depression, having some sort of mental disorder, there is a program there where it is relatable. Like when someone, I hear it all the time, like someone says, oh my God, I don't want to go outside. I don't want to talk to anyone. And it's not in a healthy way. It's in like it's this anxiety context. And it's like, oh my God, I totally feel that. Oh my God, feels, that's like the word, feels, like I feel you. And oh, that's so relatable. And I think part of it is like we're kind of connecting to each other in that way, because there's always going to be anxiety about meeting new people. There's always going to be that worry there, unless you're like a super extroverted person.
Yes.
And there's always going to be some sort of anxiety. And I think having the label of disorder, having the doctors, like going to a doctor's appointment and having that label given to you, is where the relatability comes in, because a lot of us just feel anxiety sometimes because of who we are, where we come from celestially, and we are just anxious. And I think to seek out that label gives us that relatability to everyone else, gives us that connection. It's like, oh, I have anxiety too. Oh, I have anxiety too.
Yeah.
So we're all in this group of suffering from anxiety.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking away, because of course we're feeling pain. Of course we're going through the ringer. And I'm not taking away from that experience, because I've been there too. And like, we're going through some real crap, and all of us are. I just think there's a problem here where we are identifying the problem with a disorder. We're saying, oh, I'm feeling this way because I have a disorder, and I need to go find a doctor, someone externally from me to diagnose that, so I have an excuse for my feelings. It's like, no, we can just feel. We can just have the emotion of anxiety and not label ourselves as having a disorder.
Yes.
And we can face our fears of going out into society, or whatever it is as a collective in my generation, because that is a big collective wound of like talking to each other, social anxiety, and like social fear about being out and being social.
Yeah.
I think we hold each other a bit more softly, and recognize that if we're all feeling this same thing, how is it possible that it's all a disorder in every single one of us here? Like, because there's millions of us.
Exactly.
Millions. Millions and millions.
I know. And that was the part for me. It was like, this is just so out there. Every single young person seems to be having this huge anxiety state. But when I thought about it, I mean, I've had anxiety, but I never labeled it as being me. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a disorder. It was just parts of my life where fear was, bringing up some fear. But I also thought, I've been thinking a lot about it, because it's just so, like I say, it's rife, and it has been debilitating to a lot. They haven't been able to live their life the way they really want to. Yeah. But I also believe that wasn't meant to be then. That I believe this has been actually a state for them to be in, to prevent them from being part of that world that we're all pulling the plug from, because it wasn't the world you were all meant to be in. And so I feel like it was like just a hindrance for them to not enter that world and really take it up. And also, I mean, when we think about, like you were saying, about all the, the shit that we're going through, is that, I know for myself, the density on the planet, I mean, it was a lot denser when Mum and I sort of birthed in too, whereas now it's definitely, there's still that denseness, but there's still more energy. Vibration now has shifted so much, and it's a lot lighter than when we were younger. But I mean, I think in that, I feel that you guys, all of us, in fact, every single being that's come into this field here on the planet has felt that density and that barrier of fear that's emanated from within those who are, sit in that a lot. which we've all been in and learned to move ourselves through, that's got an impact. And, you know, it's just too dense an energy for us as light, really. And I think that has a big, you know, lot to do with it as well. Claudia, what do you reckon? What's your take on it, you think?
Yeah, I think what you were saying is really interesting, because the feeling that I'm getting from this conversation and thinking about the collective and how we're experiencing similar feelings. When I compare life now to how it was when I was a child, I see some really key differences. And that is, when I was a kid, life was outside. We used to go down to the bush. We used to I remember my brother catching tadpoles in the creek down the end of our street. We were outside all the time. Being outside was like an adventure.
Yeah, it was great.
And then you know, you knew all the neighbors, you knew all the neighborhood kids, you know, there was connection in the community.
Yeah.
And I think over time, you know, parents have started to become pressurized to protect their children, be helicopter parents. You know, it's not safe out there, you know.
Yes.
You know, don't play on the street, you know. And when I was a kid, and I was just having this conversation yesterday, when there was a knock on the door, my mum would be like, go check if there's any biscuits, you know, like get the tea out. Who's here? You know, it was exciting. It was like, wow, who's at the door? Now, if somebody knocks on the door, it's like, no, hide, who's at the door? Quick, turn off the lights. You know, and it's like, we don't want to know who's at the door. It's like it's this anxiety-inducing change in the air of how we live our lives and our day-to-day lives. We're not connected to our neighbors anymore. Our children aren't playing outside, you know, and learning from the world itself, 3D reality. The parents are like organizing activities for them. So everything's organized. They have their screen time, they have their school time, they have their homework time, and they have a small amount of connection with their friends at school. And maybe if they're lucky, they'll have neighbors that they connect with.
Yes.
It's all very different. And I think that's had a huge impact on the way we see ourselves, the way we relate to the world out there, and the way we relate to each other.
Yeah.
Because a lot of kids nowadays, they don't call each other to talk on the phone. They'd rather text.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why is that person calling me? That is an invasion of my privacy. Why are they not texting?
Yeah.
Like this phone etiquette now.
Yeah.
That's like, it's a huge deal if you get a phone call. Massive deal.
Yeah.
Just things like that. I think, it's changed the way we relate to each other.
Definitely has.
Yeah, and it's anxiety inducing.
Yeah. And you're so right. I mean, when my phone goes, I think, oh, I wish they'd just text. And then you can consider what they're saying. You can, you know, but in the phone call, you're right in the moment. You have to acknowledge it right then and there. Yeah. And I think there's so much bombarding us community, you know, communication wise. It's just so many, you know, bandwidths hitting us all the time, really.
Yeah, exactly. And we're different. We're the pace of life is different. You know, there's all of these invisible elements to life that have changed incrementally over time that you hardly even notice, to the point where really now it's unrecognizable. What my childhood was like and what my children's childhood is like was completely different.
Yeah.
Because of the way society now operates itself, and what is considered acceptable and what is considered not acceptable now.
Yeah, absolutely. And community, you know, I think we need to build community back up, because our children here in New Zealand anyway, and particularly in the city, but many other spaces in the country, you know, the young ones are now just running rife, really. They're, you know, looting and doing all sorts of crazy crime because they can.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because they can, you
Yeah.
know.
They probably don't have the direction or the passion in them, like it hasn't been developed in them, those key things in a person when they're growing up, you know, that they aren't connected to those parts of themselves that says, oh, I really love playing footy, or I really love cooking, or, you know, because we don't allow our children to have space and be bored enough to figure out what it is that they're interested in sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the boredom. Oh yeah, that's so true. Like when we're bored, we go on our phone and then we're distracted. There's no boredom in my generation, really. There's no time to just sit and do nothing and explore and
be creative.
Yes.
And be creative. Yeah.
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 Yes. Do you think the devices are the things that are sort of distracting a lot, or is it more the lifestyles, you know, like at the moment, a lot of people are getting in touch with me and, oh my God, what's happening energetically? You know, I'm feeling this, and this, and that I just want to run, you know, feeling depression, lots of different things. And it's just in the last couple of days, actually, it's sort of like intensified, but there's many planets doing wild things out there too, but, you know, again, it's energetically, there's so much coming at us from all directions, you know, the sprays they're spraying in the air with those heavy metals and, you know, all sorts of things are altering us as people, and energetically it's altering us. And I suppose, you know, in many ways there's just an overload, but I think also too, the way that I see it is that there's a disconnect, yes, of them realizing that they can actually change this world, because I do believe that they don't believe there's any hope left. I think they've looked at the way the world is run now and what us as adults have done over time. What we've created now is just this chaos mess, but it's a great mess. It's a perfect chaos. But for them who aren't in that bigger picture, awareness of the bigger picture, as we might be, just see it as being a hopeless mess, and why do I need to bother? You know, why should I bother? And just are on quite a destructive path, really. And I think that's sad.
Yeah, but that pressure that they're feeling, that moment of depression, that despair, sometimes needs to happen for people to make the choice to break through that. Like you get to, it's the rock bottom story, isn't it? Like when you rock bottom, you then have a choice. Do I lay down here and allow myself to be at rock bottom forever? And the way I describe it to my husband is that you stay in the pit. Like when you get down in the pit, am I going to stay in the pit, or am I going to climb out of the pit and get out of it? And that's the choice point that we're feeling now in the collective with people, because I feel that dense, depressed feeling. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a roller coaster, like that heavy feeling comes over me. Yeah. And it's important to know when it's yours and when it isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I never lose hope. I always know that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to pass. But if you don't have that awareness, you think you're going to be in the pit forever.
Yes, absolutely.
And that has to happen for people to make the choice. You know, I'm not going to lay here. I'm going to get out of it. Yeah. I'm going to change something in my life to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big limiting belief held in my generation, because we're young, because this life and this talk of, you know, the planet dying, of, you know, of all the destruction, all the horrible things going on, that's been the story that we've been raised on. So we can easily believe that nothing's going to change and that this pit is going to be forever.
Absolutely.
Because it's all we've ever known. And and it's not just in terms of, you know, the planet dying and all those things, but it's also just in ourselves too, because I think we're all so emotional. Life has probably been hard for all of, well, I think life is kind of hard for everyone, but
I do too. Yeah.
It's like really major things that all of my generation goes through, because I talk to, you know, people my age, and every single one has like some crazy stories to tell. And so their whole life they've been raised in difficulty at some level. And so when you don't believe that things will change and that the pit is the permanent pit that will be there forever and you can't get out, people make a home there. And they build a home and they find comfort because they have to. It's like what's that word, that psychological thing that happens when someone gets kidnapped and then they have to, and
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, that. So
and we get, even if it's uncomfortable and we know it doesn't fit us, we'll stay.
Yeah.
You know, and we make it comfortable in some way, even though it's not. Yeah.
This is a great conversation. This is so good, because it is exactly where I feel we are at as humanity. It's like we're experiencing Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
With where we're at, like we're trying to normalize, trying to make this crazy normal.
Yeah,
because that's our human nature, maybe.
Programming, isn't it? That's what we've always done. You know, no matter how shitty your life might be and how shitty you might be feeling, somebody says, how are you? What do? We put a smile on and go, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, we just make the most of what we can out of the moment and what we're in, no matter how deep the crap is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And like something happened to me the other day where my husband said something to me, and he felt that he was being loving, but what he said, I don't know if it was the tone with which he said it or the timing of how he said it, I don't know, but it scared me. And it wasn't scary what he was saying, really.
Yeah.
But it was like, just be aware of this, you know. It was like a little bit of a note, just be aware of this. And then when I became aware of that, the stories just started churning in me, and I was like, oh God, what if this happens, what if that? And it was like started an avalanche,
all the what ifs.
Yes, all the what ifs. But it was a good thing, because what it did, it broke me out of this comforting slumber that I'd put myself in this situation, and made me go out and create another avenue for myself, to create a wider possibility of something.
Right. Yes.
So I wasn't just putting all my eggs in one basket anymore. And so that was a really good thing. And then the next day when I did that, I was like, oh, see, I can do it. I can do anything. I'm the master. I'm the creator of my reality. But at the time when he said it to me, I freaked out. It was like I went through, you know,
the fear.
Yeah.
And that is a false evidence appearing real.
Yeah. And we've just got to realize, okay, the fear is there to trigger me into action or whatever, because that's really what fear is like if a bear is coming for you, you run, and it's adrenaline and it makes you faster. So if you kind of like keep it in context and don't let it kind of go out of control, and you parent yourself, you love yourself enough to say, okay, Claudia, you're freaking out now, like you just need to allow it to run its course. You feel it and you'll get to the other side of it, and then you can work out, because I didn't know I was going to work it all out the next day. I didn't know. I didn't have a clue.
No, you're in the moment.
Yeah, but I felt it, I let it go, and then the next day all the ideas started coming.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's great, eh?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why it is, and we hear it all the time, that everything is so perfect. Like that was perfect. What he said was perfect for you know?
Yeah, but it didn't stop me from like going, oh, why did you say that to me?
Yeah, because the fear comes up. Yeah. So what do you feel, Juliette, in your, like, do you see that your generation is kicking into gear in a sense and creating new things on the planet, or do you feel they're in that possum in the headlights, like, you know, frozen? How do you see that?
I think I think definitely both. To answer
Right.
your-
Yeah.
I think it's about timing as well, because we're all still kids mostly. So yeah, I think at right now we're learning the lessons, but one day, very soon, not long from now, it will be teaching our lessons.
Yeah. Yes, definitely timing, eh? And it you can feel it sort of you know, fading, I suppose, or that, you know, it's fading out. And I think there's a time, I just keep feeling like when I get shown, and it's usually through doing readings for people, I sort of get the bigger picture view, future view, in a sense, sometimes, most times. And what it tends to show up the same in many, so I know this is a global more so. And what I keep seeing and being shown is like this huge light wave, like it's really, really high. And what we're doing, it feels like it's coming through towards the end of the year. And what we're doing is we're all leveling up to be able to get over the top of it instead of being swept with it. So it's like, and we keep talking, you know, I got lots of information last year around the tsunami wave that was coming, this light wave, and it's still showing up for me, you know, but it's like we're leveling ourselves and raising ourselves up to be able to ride this gently instead of being wiped out by it, or, you know, hit too hard by it anyway. So yeah, there's definite timing for sure.
Yeah,
And it is increasing. Yeah, it's pretty
I
cool.
agree. And I like how you said those two things, like the possum and also the changing, because I think we are the changes. We will be the changes.
Yes.
We will be the change that needs to happen. And I think it's already happening slowly, like, because my generation is just slowly getting to the stage where we're kind of old enough now. We're getting to become adults and we're learning, and you know, we're evolving.
Yeah.
It's definitely coming soon, I think, very much so. And I see more and more and more people my age who are spiritual, who are enlightened, who are awakened and are open. Like, that's a big thing with my generation that I really appreciate, is the openness. Like, we're open to hear other people, we're open to hear stories, we're open to spirituality, we're open to the crazy, we're open to the crazy. And that's what I really love about our generation. That's what I witness a lot of the time.
It's totally there. And like with our queen, you know, moving on now, and you know, my father, parents of our age group going, it's like that whole brand there, that whole wave of that generation is now moving off the planet. And that was the one that was holding that very ancient old rigidity, that system of you do it like this and no other. And so we, in my generation anyway, came in to break through a lot of that. And then, you know, leave it wide open for you guys to all sort of move in. So we were sort of like the pioneers coming in. But what I'm seeing now is that generation is really moving on. And this generation now, we're all coming into a place where you know, because they were the ones that really judged the scene, judged the conspiracy, judged everything that was outside of that norm that they, you know, sat in and really secured into for us as a world and, you know, society and community and all sorts. So that's all shifting, and I'm so glad that I'm here to see that change. Like, I'm actually here on the planet watching this all happening. I mean, it's pretty amazing, really, after growing up in all of that and breaking through a lot of it, and, you know, seeing the newness now that's coming in. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I think, like you say, Julia, it's time. There is a time, and I feel, you know, as from next year, I feel there's going to be a real sort of movement, you know, that's going to really start picking up momentum, really. Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, ladies, this has been a wonderful hour.
Yes,
Like,
I loved it.
it's gone so quick. Yeah, I've loved it too. Yes.
I'm really glad I did it outside.
Yeah. Oh, it was so lovely, and thank you so much for coming in and having a chat. And yeah, all the best with everything you're doing, and go witch bitch.
Thank you. A rich bitch.
Lots of love to you both.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
So welcome.